My name is Victoria Castellano, 32 years old. And the exact moment my father destroyed my wedding was also the exact moment I became the most powerful person in the room. He stood up during the reception, champagne glass raised, and announced to 300 guests that my husband Marcus would be running my family's company while I could answer phones and look pretty. What none of them knew, including my father, was that the text message vibrating in my beaded clutch had just made me owner of 87% of Castellano Properties, a $940 million real estate empire spanning 7 states. How do you tell your father he just handed your company to your employee? Let me take you back 6 hours to when this disaster started. The morning began in the bridal suite of the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Chicago, Lake Michigan glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. My dress was a custom Vera Wang, ivory silk with hand-sewn pearls that took 4 seamstresses 8 months to complete. Cost, $47,000, paid for with my own money from my salary as Senior Acquisitions Director at Castellano Properties. I'd closed $340 million in deals over the past 3 years, personally negotiating the purchase of 2 historic buildings in the Gold Coast and a mixed-use development in Lincoln Park that became the most profitable project in company history. My father, Edward Castellano, never once acknowledged it. Not in board meetings, not at family dinners, not even in private. Every success I achieved was met with "Marcus must be teaching you well," or "Your husband will make a fine leader someday." Marcus, my fiancé of 2 years, worked in our marketing department. Nice guy, good with social media campaigns, absolutely zero experience in acquisitions or commercial real estate development. We met at a company mixer. He made me laugh. I thought he saw me for who I actually was, not just the boss's daughter. I was wrong about a lot of things. The ceremony itself was flawless, Holy Name Cathedral, packed with Chicago's real estate elite, city council members, and 3 generations of Castellanos. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus lifted my veil and whispered, "We made it, Mrs. Castellano." Something in his tone felt off, triumphant in a way that had nothing to do with love. I ignored it. Nerves, I told myself. Everyone's nervous on their wedding day. The reception was held in the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over 20 round tables draped in champagne linens. The band played standards, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, the old Italian-American classics my father insisted on. I was halfway through my salmon when Dad stood up, tapping his champagne flute with a fork until the room fell silent. "Family, friends, honored guests," he began, his voice booming with that self-assured authority he'd perfected over 40 years in business. "Today isn't just about celebrating love. It's about legacy." He gestured toward Marcus, who sat beside me looking like he'd just won the lottery. "Marcus, you've proven yourself a capable young man. Smart, ambitious, respectful of tradition." My stomach tightened. This wasn't a normal father of the bride speech. "Which is why," Dad continued, pulling a leather portfolio from beneath his chair, "I'm announcing tonight that Marcus will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer of Castellano Properties, effective immediately." The room erupted in applause. Marcus stood, buttoning his tuxedo jacket, grinning like a man who'd planned this moment down to the second. "As for my daughter Victoria," Dad added, his voice dripping with patronizing warmth, "she'll continue supporting the company in an administrative capacity. Every CEO needs a good secretary, after all." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Polite, uncomfortable laughter, but laughter nonetheless. I sat frozen, fork still in hand, the salmon suddenly tasting like ash. Marcus leaned down and kissed my cheek, whispering, "Don't worry, babe. I'll take care of everything." He walked to the front of the room, shaking hands with my father, accepting congratulations from guests who'd watched me grow up, who'd seen me work 70-hour weeks, who knew damn well I'd built half the portfolio Dad was handing over like a graduation gift. That's when my phone buzzed. I pulled it from my clutch, hands shaking. Unknown number. The message read, "Victoria, this is Harold Greenspan, your grandmother's estate attorney. Eliza Castellanos will has been executed. Check your offshore account immediately. Access code, Nightingale 1955. You need to see this before you do anything else." My grandmother Eliza had died 6 months earlier at 94, sharp as ever until the very end. She'd been the original force behind Castellano Properties, buying her first tenement building in 1960 with money she saved working double shifts at a garment factory. By 1975, she owned 12 buildings. By 1990, she'd expanded into commercial real estate and brought my father into the business. I spent every Saturday of my childhood in her office, learning how to read property surveys, analyze cap rates, and negotiate with contractors who underestimated her because of her accent and gender. She taught me everything. She also never trusted my father. I excused myself from the table, mumbling something about the bathroom, and walked through the ballroom in my $47,000 dress, smiling at guests who had no idea the floor was about to collapse beneath them. I found a quiet corner near the coat check, pulled out my phone, and logged into the account using the code. The screen loaded. I blinked. Refreshed. Blinked again. Account balance, $127 million. Attached was a PDF labeled Final Trust Distribution and Corporate Holdings Transfer. I opened it with trembling fingers. The document, notarized and filed with the Illinois Secretary of State 2 weeks before her death, showed that Eliza Castellano had quietly restructured ownership of Castellano Properties into a private trust. My father, who believed he'd inherited controlling interest when she died, actually owned 13%. Marcus, through marriage to me, owned nothing. I, Victoria Castellano, held 87% of the company, the buildings, the accounts, and every asset acquired since 1960. There was a handwritten note scanned into the final page. Victoria, your father is a fool, and your husband is a snake. I saw it coming a mile away. The company is yours. Don't let them take what you built. Love, Nana. My knees went weak. I leaned against the wall, pressing my hand to my mouth to keep from laughing or screaming or both. 60 feet away, my father and my husband were toasting their future, shaking hands with investors, planning strategies for a company they didn't own. I owned it. I owned all of it. I walked back to the ballroom, my heels clicking on marble like a countdown. Marcus saw me first, his smile faltering when he registered the look on my face. I didn't sit. I walked straight to the microphone at the front of the room, gently taking it from the band leader's hand. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'd like to say a few words." The room quieted. Dad frowned. Marcus went pale. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate what I thought was the happiest day of my life," I began. "My father just made a very generous announcement about the future of Castellano Properties. There's just one small problem." I pulled my phone from my clutch and held it up. About 20 minutes ago, I received notification from my grandmother's estate attorney. As it turns out, Eliza Castellano restructured the company ownership before she passed away. Whispers started immediately. Dad's face turned red. Marcus looked like he might vomit. According to documents filed with the state 2 weeks before her death, I continued, I own 87% of Castellano Properties. My father owns 13%. Marcus, I turned to look directly at my husband of 4 hours, owns nothing. He never did. The ballroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, chairs scraping as people stood to get a better view. Dad lunged toward me, but my Uncle Paolo, Nana's younger brother and the family's longtime attorney, stepped in front of him, a folder already in his hands. "It's all legal, Eddie," Paolo said quietly. "Eliza had me draft it 2 years ago. Airtight." Marcus stumbled forward, his face slick with sweat. "Vic, baby, wait. This doesn't change anything. We're married. We're a team." "A team." I cut him off, my voice sharp enough to slice glass. "You knew about this, didn't you? You and my father planned this whole thing. That's why you proposed so quickly. That's why you pushed for a spring wedding instead of waiting." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words came out. I turned to address the room. "Here's what's going to happen. Effective immediately, I'm assuming my position as majority owner and CEO of Castellano Properties. My father will retain his 13% as a silent partner with no operational authority. And Marcus, I looked at him one final time, you're fired. Security will escort you out." 2 security guards I'd personally hired for the wedding, men who'd worked our properties for years and knew exactly who really ran things, stepped forward. Marcus backed away, hands up like he was being arrested. "You can't do this," Dad roared. "I built this company." "No," I said, my voice ice cold. "Nana built it. I grew it. You just showed up and took credit." I handed the microphone back to the band leader. "Everyone, please enjoy the rest of the evening. The bar stays open. The band plays on. And tomorrow morning, I have a company to run." I walked out of my own wedding reception in my $47,000 dress, clutch in hand, and drove myself home in the vintage Alfa Romeo Nana had left me in the garage of her Evanston brownstone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove along Lakeshore Drive with the windows down, watching the city lights reflect off the water, feeling the weight of 87% ownership settle on my shoulders like a crown. Marcus tried calling 47 times that night. I blocked his number. Dad showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., pounding on the door, threatening to sue. Paolo was already there with restraining order paperwork. The annulment was filed Monday morning. Fraud and misrepresentation. Marcus had married me under false pretenses with intent to gain control of assets through my father's planned transfer. Illinois law was very clear on this. The marriage was voided by Wednesday. By Friday, I'd fired 6 board members who'd enabled my father's incompetence and promoted 3 women from within the company who'd been doing the actual work for years. We restructured, modernized, and within 6 months, Castellano Properties became the most profitable it had been in 2 decades. Marcus got a job selling used cars in Schaumburg. Dad moved to Arizona, where he tells people he's retired by choice. I sent him a Christmas card last year with a photo of me standing in front of our newest development, a 30-story mixed-use tower in River North that I designed, financed, and built from the ground up. On the back, I wrote, "Every CEO needs a good secretary. Thanks for the advice." I never heard back. Today, I'm 34. I run a company worth over $1.2 billion. I sit in Nana's old office, her portrait on the wall behind my desk, and I make decisions that shape skylines. My father wanted to make me a secretary at my own wedding. Instead, my grandmother made me untouchable. And every single day, I prove her right.